is going on, everyone, and welcome back to yet another North to South show here. Today is Monday, May the 31st, and we got a big day today. Good show today. Two segments we got for today. We are going to be ranking each and every team's SEC schedule from easiest to hardest, so 14-1. That is going to be very interesting, and then we're getting back into our best versus the rest segment, which is today. We got Texas A&M going to Colorado, which should be a very, very, very interesting game. So that's our show for today, guys. What's happening in Toronto? I got a big Leafs game to watch after this. As you know, I am from Toronto, and we know hockey's a big thing here. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Leafs fan in the world. I definitely care a lot more about football than I do hockey, but I'm still interested. Got a lot of fans who are big Leafs fans, especially a guy that you might know on this channel. TDSTOHRS Insider is the biggest Leafs fan in the world, so we're cheering for him tonight, cheering on the Leafs. So gonna watch some of that after. We also had another thing that came out today. College baseball selection show, my South Carolina Gamecocks. We get to host in Columbia, but that is because COVID and everything. We were one of the original 20 host sites, but then we got selected in the top 16, so that was really, really fun. We are the 2 seed in our regional. We got Old Dominion, we got Virginia, and we got Jacksonville's the 4, I'm pretty sure. So lots of good stuff to go on there. Lots of good SEC baseball to be played. Big impact. See a lot of SEC teams in the Super Regional and then going on to Omaha this season. It's going to be a fun season. But let's stop talking about baseball and hockey because we are here to talk some football. And let me pull up the SEC, almighty SEC helmet grid on the screen because these are the most fun things to look at if you are a big SEC fan or college football fan in general. Just being able to take a look at how every single week lines up and seeing the helmets and everything like that is really, really, really a thing of beauty. So what we're going to be doing today is going through the schedule each by each, going through all of them, and I'm going to be ranking them. So let's get into that now. Starting off our rankings of our SEC schedule, starting off with the easiest, which will be 14, going all the way up to what I think is the toughest schedule in all the SEC, which will be number 1. At number 14, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, Alabama's the best team in the SEC right now. I don't think it's any surprise to say that. I mean, big games that they do go to Florida. They play Miami the first game, which is at a neutral site, and then they also have big games like they go to Texas A&M. Those are going to be your big games. You get LSU at home this season. You get like Mississippi State at home. You go to Auburn. You go to Mississippi State, but then at home you get like Tennessee. You get your LSU. You get Arkansas. Games like that. So I think it's a very, very winnable schedule for Alabama. You don't have any real high-class games. I'm guessing that A&M one is going to be the biggest one of the whole season for Alabama because that's going to kind of determine the West. I think that the Texas A&M game will be more competitive than the Florida game, but the Florida game still 110% should be a great game. So I got Alabama coming in at number 14. Number 13, I have the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, Texas A&M, last season, they got the short end of the stick because they were supposed to have a really, really easy schedule before the whole COVID thing happened. Then they got Florida thrown into their mix out of the SEC East, but they ended up winning that game. And I think that they have a very favorable schedule here. You look at their big games. Obviously, you get Alabama at home, which is huge. Kind of the tougher games I look at, going to LSU, going to Ole Miss is going to be a bit tougher. But then you travel neutral site in Colorado, which is a game that we're going to talk about later in the show when we go through our best versus the rest segment, breaking down Colorado and Texas A&M. The elevation of that game is going to be something to think about. It's going to be something interesting, so that's something to think about there. But other than that, like you got Kent State, New Mexico, you get Arkansas at home, you get Mississippi State at home, you travel to Missouri, you travel to LSU, you travel to Ole Miss, and you pretty much get everyone else at home. So I think that the schedule works out really, really nicely for the Texas A&M Aggies this season. So let's now go into number 12. Number 12, we got the Missouri Tigers. I think you're going to see a lot of SEC East teams towards the bottom of this list because SEC West teams, in my opinion, if you just had to play the SEC West slate, it is going to be a much tougher schedule and a much tougher task than going up against the SEC East teams. So we got Missouri here. Missouri's big games, I mean, they get Texas A&M this season in the rotating schedule. But other than that, like you're going to have your classic Georgia and everything like that. And then the outer conference isn't anything terrible. You go to Boston College. And then other than that, you get Central Michigan and you get Southeast Missouri. And then they play the SEC East, which is a bit weaker, in my opinion, this season compared to what the SEC West has this season. And I think that our Missouri is one of the better teams in the SEC East this season, so they should do a pretty good job. So I have Missouri coming in at the number 12 spot. At number 11, we have the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now, again, this is a West team, but I look at their rotating opponents. The rotating opponents for the SEC East, you get Vanderbilt and Kentucky, which they get to Kentucky every year, and your rotating opponent is Vanderbilt. You don't go to Vanderbilt, but I think that's a good thing for Mississippi State. It's a lot easier. You play your SEC West slate. You get Louisiana Tech at home. You get NC State at home, who actually was a good team last year. You go to Memphis, which may be a bit tougher, but other than that, man, you play your regular SEC West slate, and the SEC East rotating schedule is very, very favorable to you this season. And then another out-of-conference opponent that you may play, or that you do play, is Tennessee State. Next up, what are we on? We just did 11. Number 10, I have the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, Vanderbilt is the doormat of the SEC East. They're the doormat of the SEC, really, because they have struggled the last couple seasons in terms of putting up wins against SEC teams. So not to say that this schedule in terms of Vanderbilt is going to be easy for them, but in terms of looking at opponents, if you're just talking about an average SEC team, this is a pretty easy schedule in terms of SEC schedules, because no SEC schedule is going to be easy. None of them. But there are going to be easier ones than others. So Vanderbilt this season, East Tennessee State, you play them. You go to Colorado State, which should be interesting. You get Stanford at home, but then other than that, you get like Georgia, you get Connecticut at home. Go to Florida, go to South Carolina, Mississippi State at home. They're going to be your rotating opponent this year. And then you still get Ole Miss. You travel to Ole Miss, but like you're escaping the Bamas, you're escaping the Texas A&Ms. I do think Ole Miss is a good team this year, but you're escaping like LSU. There are a lot of good SEC West teams that you're escaping. And the out-of-conference opponents, even though they do have to travel to Colorado State, I look at like Stanford, Colorado State, ETSU, and Connecticut, and there's no one that really, really scares me if we're talking about an average SEC team. So I'm putting Vanderbilt in my 10 spot. Coming in at number 9, I have the Kentucky Wildcats. Kentucky Wildcats at number 9. Again, SEC East slate, one thing that they do have that is a bit tougher, their rotating SEC West opponent this season is LSU, which they get at home. They also get Florida at home. The toughest thing probably for them is definitely going to have to go to Georgia this season. You go to Louisville as well, but Louisville doesn't scare me as much if you're talking from a Kentucky perspective. I think that should be a really competitive game, but I don't think Louisville's anyone that's going to be jumping out of the schedule at you other than it's a rivalry game. You play New Mexico State, you play Louisiana Monroe, you play Chattanooga, teams like that. And then you always get your rotating SEC West opponent of Mississippi State, who finished last in the division last season. So I think that Kentucky has a pretty favorable schedule this season. You get Florida and LSU at home. The only tough things are that you have to go to Georgia and you have to go to Louisville. So those are kind of the big games that I'm looking at that Kentucky schedule. Coming in at number 8, I have the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee Volunteers coming in at 8. I think that, again, you play a regular SEC East slate. They always play Bama each and every season. They play in Bama this season, which is obviously tougher. And I think they play a decent Pitt team also who comes to town, comes to Knoxville week 2. But other than that, you're out of conference opponents. You got Bowling Green, you got Tennessee Tech, and you got South Alabama. And then on top of Pitt, other than that, you travel to Florida this year, you travel to Missouri, you travel to Alabama, but you get teams like Georgia, South Carolina, Ole Miss, all at home. So you get some big games at home, you get some big games away, but all in all, I just think that the teams above them have some pretty high caliber games on their schedule. So very interesting to see what we have for the rest of it. Coming in at number 7, I have the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, going through some of other people's lists, I saw Georgia very low, which really shocked me because out of conference opponents, yes, Georgia plays UAB this season. They play Charleston Southern, and they go to Georgia Tech for the out-of-conference opponents. Nothing scary, but you start open the season, your season opener in a neutral site against Clemson, who's a team that has made the college football playoff like what? I can't even remember. It was like 2014 that the last time that Clemson didn't make the college football playoff, a team that is constantly being named as one of the top 2 programs in all of the nations. You play them number 1, week 1. You deserve to be really high up on this list, on top of playing an SEC East slate, which obviously you're going to have Florida every single season. What kind of makes this a weaker schedule is that Georgia doesn't have to play themselves out of the SEC East. But on top of that, you still got to play Vanderbilt out of the West, and you play Arkansas this season, who I think is a bit of a dark horse. So I think Georgia's schedule is definitely tougher than a lot of people think it is, because people just underestimate them because they think, oh, you play an SEC East, but guys, they play Clemson game 1. Like, give them some respect for that. Coming in at number 6, I got LSU this season. LSU at number 6. And this for the reason because they play an all SEC West slate, obviously. You go to Alabama this season. You do get Texas A&M at home, but other than that, you still have to go to Ole Miss. You go to Mississippi State. And the big game, going to UCLA. If you've seen the lines and everything like that, I did my early prediction on this game, and I had it being a lot closer than what most LSU fans will say the final score is going to be. That could be a trap game for sure. You never want to travel coast to coast, basically. I know LSU isn't technically on the East Coast, but still, they're pretty far from LA. So that's going to be a far travel. It's kind of a trap first game. So that's going to be difficult. And then always going to Alabama is going to be tough. And then out of the SEC East this season, you get Florida always, and then you also have to play, who's their other SEC East opponent? You have to play Kentucky, which should be an interesting game. Kentucky's always an underrated team every single season. You travel to Kroger Field for that game. Coming in at my number 5 spot, I got the Florida Gators. Now, Florida plays Florida Atlantic at South Florida. You play Florida State each and every season, and you play Samford, but you got to play your Georgia. You got to play at LSU, and then you still got to play Alabama this season on top of all the other SEC East teams. So you're getting the short end of the stick there. Anytime that you have to play both Georgia and Alabama this season is going to be definitely one of the harder schedules of anyone's schedules all season. So Florida, I think, again, this was a team, when I was looking at other people's rankings of the schedules and everything like that, it looked like people weren't giving them the respective strength of schedule that they deserve. So I'm giving it to them here. I put Florida at number 5. At number 4, I have Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss opens up the season in a very interesting game, a Monday game against Louisville, which is in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I'm pretty sure, in Atlanta, Georgia. Other than that, you play Austin Peay, who was the team that we all watched to kick off the college football season last year, because that was the only game that was on them against Central Arkansas. I remember that was like the first college football game of the whole season. Tulane, you go to Alabama, you go to Tennessee, you still got to play LSU, you go to Auburn, Texas A&M at home. But then another piece about this that people do not look at, you play Liberty, let's not forget, they took down Coastal Carolina in their bowl game, and Liberty had a very, very good season last year. Very excited to see what Ole Miss and Liberty are able to do, because usually when you schedule these out-of-conference games, like you look at Liberty on paper, like just seeing Liberty's logo, you're not like, oh, that's a good football team. That's a possible loss scenario. But if you watched Liberty last year and know the quality of football team that they actually have over there, that is a very, very interesting game for Ole Miss. So Ole Miss's schedule, I put them up at number 4 because they do have that one opponent that is not supposed to be good, but they are going to be good this season. Number 3, I have Auburn, which these top 3 could all be shaken up. Like, you could toss all of them, 3 of them in a bag and pull out whichever one for number 1, and I wouldn't disagree, because they are all really, really tough schedules. But I have, who did I say? My number 3 is Auburn. You play Akron. You play Alabama State. You play Georgia State. Those are your out-of-conference opponents. But then, obviously, the big one, week 3, you travel to Happy Valley, which just got released. That is going to be a night game. Very interesting scenario to go in there. First of all, who's going to be Auburn's quarterback for that game? And is that going to be a whiteout in general? Because that will make a huge difference. I still think that whatever atmosphere you're going into will be very, very intimidating. But I think the whiteout changes things just a bit. You still got to go to LSU. You play Georgia each and every season. You got Alabama at home. You go to South Carolina. You go to Texas A&M, and then play the rest of your SEC West opponents. Obviously, go to Penn State. Even though that Penn State wasn't the greatest of teams last year, I still look at them and be like, that environment just alone, their fans, is not a place that you want to go to on your schedule. You do not want to see at Penn State on anyone's schedule. If it's Penn State at home at Jordan-Hare, I think we're talking a different scenario, but that's not what we got. We got Auburn going to Penn State, so I put them at my number 3. Number 2, I got my South Carolina Gamecocks, which it seems like each and every single season, we are constantly playing one of the toughest schedules in all of the nation. We get Eastern Illinois. We got to travel to East Carolina. We get Troy at home. And then, obviously, to finish off the season, we play Clemson. We still got your Georgia. We travel to Georgia this season, early in the season. I'm pretty sure we play them week 3. We got Florida at home, which is nice. We travel to A&M, which is never easy. We've never played good in A&M. We haven't played good against A&M ever, home or away, because we've never beat them. But it's just going to be, you play your Clemsons, your Floridas, your Georgias, your Texas A&Ms, and those 4 teams right there are 4 teams that you do not want to see on your schedule. But other than that, I still think Kentucky is going to be a competitive game. I think that Missouri is going to be a really competitive game, and that kind of scares me that we have to go to Missouri as well. And then we also get Auburn in the SEC West rotating team, who could be an underrated team in that division. So that's why I have my South Carolina Gamecocks at the number 2 slot, and then finishing up with my number 1 slot. If you haven't figured out who it is by process of elimination, I'm going with the Arkansas Razorbacks. I mean, Arkansas has to play a SEC West slate, which I feel like I'm constantly repeating myself when I'm saying, oh, this team has to play an SEC West slate, which is kind of obvious, but you play Missouri every season as your SEC East opponent, and then your rotating team. This year, you go to Georgia. That's not going to be tough. That's not going to be easy. You go to Alabama, not going to be easy. You still play Texas A&M at home. You go to Ole Miss. You get Auburn at home. You go to LSU. Like, look at that. You go to LSU, Alabama, and Georgia. That is not easy on itself. And I haven't even thrown in the big week 2 game, even though that this game is at home. I think that you do not want to see this team on your schedule no matter what. You still got the Texas Longhorns at home, which I think will be more competitive game than a lot of people think. But Texas does make the schedule a lot harder, on top of having 3 insanely tough environments to go into as a road team. And then on top of that, you still got to play your A&Ms and your Ole Misses and all those other fun teams that you got over there in the West. So that is my rankings. I have Bama 14, A&M 13, Missouri 12, Mississippi State 11, Vanderbilt 10, Kentucky 9, Tennessee 8, Georgia 7, LSU 6, Florida 5, Ole Miss 4, 3, Auburn 3, South Carolina 2, and then Arkansas finishing up at my number 1 spot. So that was my segment right there, guys. I hope you guys appreciate that. I'm just going to go catch my breath, get a quick drink of water, and then we'll be right back to look at this Texas A&M Colorado game, which is going to be very, very interesting. So nobody go away. Still got tons to talk about. Well, I'm out taking a drink of water and catching my breath to bring you guys some more amazing content. Let me tell you how you guys can contribute to the TDSTOHRS brand. Number 1. As easy as it sounds, nothing helps us out more than your constant support through watching the videos, liking the videos, being subscribed, and commenting. Your engagement is what is most important to us here at TDSTOHRS, and we appreciate your support. Number 2, channel memberships. Down below next to the subscribe button, you will see a button that says join. Click it to join one of our 2 tier levels. Each tier level comes with exclusive emojis and badges, and the upper tiers get exclusive content not available to other subscribers. Payments are monthly, and memberships start at $2.99 a month and only go up to $5.99 a month. 3. In the description, there will be a link for direct contributions to the channel. This is completely voluntary, and the funds you decide to forward us will be used to improve the quality of our content. Your support to the TDSTOHR brand means the world to us, guys, because without you guys, there is no channel. So this is our channel. Thank you for your constant support, and now let's get back to some great content. Let's continue on with the show. So like what I said, we are now going to get into our best versus the rest segment, where we are going to be breaking down this Texas A&M and Colorado game, which is very, very interesting because this game is at neither team's stadium. It is actually at a neutral site, but you call this a neutral site, but it's basically home field advantage for Colorado because this game is at Empower Field or Mile High Stadium, whatever you want to call it, where the Denver Broncos plays, which is obviously in Denver, Colorado. So very interesting game. I'm pretty sure this game gets played on September the 11th, which is going to be week 2 of this college football season, and definitely one of the more interesting. I want to say it's an interesting just because you don't get this matchup very often. It's not like you see Texas A&M and Colorado play on a yearly basis. So it's going to be interesting to see these 2 teams match up in a neutral site in an NFL stadium. So it should be very, very interesting. We all know this is an SEC show. We talk about Texas A&M a lot. They're going to be a good team this year. So I don't really feel like we need to start off with talking about Texas A&M we could just go through some of the basics. They got a new starter coming in this year, obviously Haynes King. I think that Texas A&M's running back room is obviously one of the best in the country. I made a video comparing their running back room to Georgia's, which are two of the better running back rooms in the nation. Then I look at the offensive line. They're still rebuilding some things over there. I look at the receiving game. There's some underrated guys. I look at Jalen Weidemeyer. Anais Smith is a guy that you don't really see as much as a wide receiver, if like on paper or whatever, but he's a serious pass catcher out of the backfield. He's not technically a wide receiver, but catches the ball a ton. He was the leading receiver last season. And then on top of that, you got like Lane at the wide receiver position. And I think this defense is going to be one of the more consistent defenses in all of the SEC this season. Now, Colorado is what we're really here to talk about, because we all kind of have an opinion on Texas A&M, but Colorado is a team that we don't usually get that much national media from. It's not like your Alabamas, your Clemsons, your Georgias. They're a Pac-12 team, and even in the Pac-12, you still have your big boys of like, you're going to say USC, you're going to talk about Oregon, you're going to talk about teams like those when you talk Pac-12 football, even throwing like Washington. They've been a really, really powerful team, but Colorado is a team that you don't hear a lot about. So Colorado last season finished out the season 4-2 and lost to Texas in a bowl game, finished out the season with a bowl loss to Texas, which was a pretty high scoring game for Texas. I'm pretty sure Colorado only put up like 23 points in that game. And I'm pretty sure Texas scored like 55. It was a pretty lopsided win for Texas in that game. Let's start off with talking about Colorado offensively and what they're looking at this season. Colorado offensively, it's a very easy offense to look at if you're basing it off of what happened last year. This team was 87th in the nation in passing last season. This is a very run-heavy and a run-positive offense that you're going to see out of Colorado. I mean, we're going to get into the passing game and everything later, but Jarek Broussard was a guy who really, really broke out last season. He had 895 yards in the 6 games for the Buffs last season to go along with 5 TDs. Now, after that, the depth last season was really, really lacking, because I'm pretty sure other than the quarterbacks, the next best rusher had like 23 yards or something for Colorado. So it was a really one-sided, one-dimensional rushing game with Broussard, but there is a but, because we do have some big returnees this season. We got Fontenot. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I apologize, Buffalo fans, if I did mispronounce that, but he returns from an injury that he obviously couldn't play last year. He was the leading rusher in 2019, which Buffalo fans are very, very, very excited to have him back and add to this rushing game that is already really, really strong. And then Ashton Clayton, a freshman coming in who Colorado fans are very, very high on, looks to have a big, big season at that 3-headed monster in the backfield. So Colorado's rushing game is definitely going to be their strong suit this season. They bring back 4 of 5 starters on this offensive line. So obviously, the rushing game is going to kind of be the big piece for Colorado going into the season. They got lots to look forward to in the rushing game. But how about the passing game? I said it. This passing game was the 87th best in the nation last season. It wasn't really strong, although you do get your starting QB Sam Neuer back this season. You look at the receiving side of the ball, their leading receivers, Dimitri Staley, and then Levante Chenault, who's obviously the brother of Laviska Chenault, who is Jacksonville. I'm pretty sure he's on Jacksonville. I know he's drafted by Jacksonville, so I'm pretty sure he's still there. He's going to be catching passes from Trevor Lawrence this season. But you look at those 2 guys alone, they were their 2 leading receivers. You get both of them back. And I know Pac-12, they only played 6 games last season. Colorado only played 5 Pac-12 games. One of them, or no, I think they only played 4, because one of those teams was San Diego State. But you got the Arizona State game canceled. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if that got rescheduled or not, but you play 6 games and your 2 leading receivers combined for only 37 receptions. I think that definitely shows you what this passing game is about and just how run heavy this team actually will be that they were last season. And I hope if you're a Colorado fan, you're definitely hoping that you see this passing game become more effective this season. But will it happen? Right now, if you had to base it off of last season, it is showing signs that you're really going to rely on this rushing game. And that's not a problem, because you do have 3 really, really good rushers in the backfield for Colorado this season. Now let's talk about this defense. Star linebacker Nate Landman did go out with an Achilles injury. So you're going to have your second tight end come in and be the big, big guy on this defense. And I look at Carson Wells, the second leading tackler on this team for the Buffs this season or last season. He's got to come out and he's going to have even of a bigger season than what he had last season, because I'm pretty sure he had like 6.5 sacks. He had like over 16 tackle for losses or something like that season. Carson Wentz had a very, very good season last year, but with the absence, I don't want to say it's not like written or whatever you want to call it, whatever the metaphor is, that Landman is going to be out for the whole season, but still coming back from injury, you need to have that star guy in Wells really step up if you're still going to have Landman recovering from injury and everything like that. And hopefully you can get Landman healthy somewhere towards the early portion of the season. So you don't want to rush him, but you want to get him back in a decent amount of time. Safety Isaiah Lewis led the team in INTs last season. He had 3 of the 4 team interceptions that the whole team had. Other than that, I really look at this Buff secondary, and that kind of scares me that you only have one guy. They just need other guys who are able to force turnovers, because you saw towards the end of the season, teams started to run up the scoreboard against them. I'm pretty sure they lost to Utah. Utah put up a decent number against them, and then obviously Texas did last season. So secondary is a room for improvement, in my opinion, for the Buffs this season. And then losing Johnson on the defensive line, especially the interior of the defensive line. Now, I do look at a guy like Lang to really, really step up this season. On the outside, he's an edge rusher for the Buffs this season. Get into that backfield, get the quarterback down early, get pressure on the quarterback. So I'm looking for him to have a big season on the outside. So overall, I think this defense has some good pieces. I think that they're definitely stronger in the linebacker game. The secondary, you got some good players there. I still think that there are some spots that you got to work out, but other than that, I think that this defense is still decent. They got to tighten up after giving up 31.6 average points last season out of all 6 of their games. But I think that all around, you got a good rushing game. You got some good linebackers, which is a very important position on the defensive side of the ball. Buffalo's going to be Buffalo. The Buffaloes are going to be a decent team this year. Sorry, I'm from Toronto, and if you know, Toronto's right near Buffalo. So like every time I hear the word Buffaloes or something like that, my mind automatically goes towards the Buffalo Bills. But the Colorado Buffaloes will be a decent team this year. Let's not forget they finished second in their division this year in the Pac-12. Keys for Texas A&M to win this game, because I've already gone through a bit of a rundown about Texas A&M. We all kind of know what the story is for Texas A&M and everything like that, where really strong rushing game. You got a new quarterback. The line's going to be a bit weak. The O-line's going to be something that's going to be gelled together, and you get this team in week 2. What are my keys for Texas A&M this season? I think just stop the run game. I think Colorado's offense is very one-dimensional from what I just showed you. You got a very good defensive line over there in Texas A&M, and I think all you got to do is limit the rush game, and you will hold Colorado to under 20 points. You look at any time that Colorado's leading rusher had under 100 yards rushing, or even near like just over 100 yards, this team was still only scoring 23 points or something like that. So if you can really pinpoint on stopping this rushing game, I think that Texas A&M is going to have a great game. Other than that, one thing I want to talk about is being mindful of the elevation. I'm not saying that this is something that should worry you and keep you up the whole night if you're a Texas A&M player and be like, oh my gosh, we haven't played in this elevation, and what are we going to do? Like, this Mile High Stadium, it's going to be crazy. I say be mindful of it, but don't overreact about it, but don't go in completely blind to it either, because you don't want to be non-cognizant of it and then you realize that it's actually tough to play. And so I think that's something that's going to be interesting for Texas A&M, definitely an advantage for Colorado because they're used to playing in the elevation. Boulder's still pretty high up as well. So it's going to be interesting there. I just think, like, simple key for the game, get the run game going. You have one of the best running games in all the country. Yes, we still don't know how this offensive line is going to be glued together and everything like that, but I think that this is your game to really put it together. You get a decent Power 5 team, but a team that you could definitely dominate on the offensive line if you want to. So I think Texas A&M, if they're able to really go out and establish a rushing game, it's going to come out with a win in Denver this season. Texas A&M is the better team in this situation. I think Texas A&M is a top 10 team in the country, and not to say that Colorado is a bad team, but I think Texas A&M just out-talents them and everything. I'm going to go my final score prediction for this. I'm going to say 42 to 22. I'll go 42-22 for Texas A&M. Just all depends. Again, if Texas A&M can slow this rushing game down, that score could easily be lower, giving Colorado 22 there. But I think A&M's offense should have a decent day. It's a good game for Haynes King to get going. It's a good game to get Isaiah Spiller and Achane. There's lots of A&M fans who are correcting my pronunciation of Achane the last couple of days because I said like Achane or something like that. So Aggie fans, Chain. There you go. I got it for you. And Ananias Smith. And then even get like your Weidermeyer, your Lane, your D-Mass, your guys like that going in the receiving game, and you're going to have a good game for Texas A&M. So that is my final score prediction, 42-22 for Texas A&M. So that is that segment, guys. Thank you for joining. Let's do some fan questions now. Fan questions, and then I got to go catch this hockey game because currently we are 0-0 in the third period or first period. I know most of you don't care about hockey and you probably never even watched a game, but it's just something that's important up here in Canada. And if I don't watch this game, the city could be burned down and I would have no clue why. So, like, I'm dead serious. Leafs fans are passionate. Let's bring this up. LSU fan. LSU has to play Clemson, Bama, and at that is an insane. I did know that they do play Clemson because I do know that they're doing like a home and home series to figure out who the real Death Valley is, who owns the real Death Valley. And if you ask me, 110% it's LSU. I think that national championship decided it, but that is going to be very, very tough. But let's say that these LSU recruits that are being highly recruited in all these talented classes that LSU are bringing in, LSU is definitely going to have a very interesting schedule, but also a very competitive one at the same time. We'll give it a bit for any questions to trickle in, and other than that, we will wrap it up. I appreciate everyone for coming out today. JH Sports says, hi, how's it going, Josh? Good to hear from you. Oh, this is something that I should definitely mention. Josh, you'll definitely like to hear this. We do have... I unboxed it today. There is a jersey unboxing. I don't want to guarantee that it's going to... I think it's going to come out Wednesday. I'll say that the jersey unboxing is coming out Wednesday. Obviously, I'm not wearing the jersey, or I don't have any of the jersey that I just got behind me, but there is going to be a jersey unboxing, I'm pretty sure Wednesday. So I know you love those videos, so that will be coming. Who do I think will win the NBA Finals? Even though that this is an SEC football show, I will say I still think it's the Nets. I don't see how it's not the Nets. The audio's a little... Sorry, that's my bad. I'll check the audio for next show, so I apologize for that. The clips will be in. They should be. The audio should be fine because the audio through this is still going through internet and everything like that. I do record these with my actual camera and then put them out later, so I'll try to fix that for next show. But thank you for letting me know that, Chris. Okay, so that will be it for our show today. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Hockey for me. Obviously, we got college baseball this weekend. Enjoy sports. We got NBA and NHL playoffs still going on and whatever. And of course, the MLB still on. So still lots of sport. Oh, here we go. We got one more question. Always able to finish up on one more question. I know I start doing my outro or whatever, but when I see a question, I always got to answer for the fans. Which SEC football game do I think has the most upset potential this season? Interesting. There's so many. I think that there's a lot of Arkansas ones that I look at that have upset potential, if I'm being honest. Like, I think Arkansas is an underrated team this season. But if we're looking like a big upset this season, right now it would be considered a big upset if I told you this. But I don't think that it would be a huge shock once the season actually gets underway. But I'm going to go with either Kentucky or Missouri beating Florida this season. I think that is my most upset potential games this season. I think that those two teams can compete with Florida this season. I know a lot of Florida fans won't like hearing that, but that's kind of what my underrated, most upset potential games are that not a lot of people are talking about this season. Got Brian Bridges saying, keep up the great work. Thank you for joining us, Brian. I appreciate it. Appreciate all of you guys tuning into these. I know we only have 5 viewers on here now, but you guys don't understand, you guys just showing up live and me getting to talk to you guys and everything. It's building a community and it just helps me keep working. And I appreciate that you guys like tuning in. And then even all the YouTube clips are starting to do really, really well. So, and I think that's all because of you guys, all because you guys show up consistently and I keep doing these. So all of you guys, thank you. As always, I never thank you guys enough. I never can thank you guys enough because just me saying thank you isn't enough, but it really, really means a lot to me, all of you guys who tune into these weekly. So, and it's nice to see next to each and everyone's name who is commenting, I see that little YouTube subscribe button, which means that you are subscribed. So, as always, I appreciate it, guys. Like down below, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and definitely come back next time.